Anna's whisper. The lights were too bright. The music was too loud. Everything around Ana de Armas felt like it was spinning. She was standing backstage at one of the biggest mental health charity events in the world. Thousands of people were waiting on the other side of the curtain, and all of them were expecting her to speak. They were expecting confidence, strength, grace. But inside, she felt like a fragile glass about to shatter. Keanu Reeves stood beside her, calm, grounded. His presence was quiet but powerful, like a steady rock in a storm. He noticed the way her hands trembled, the way her breath came in short, panicked bursts. He didn't say anything yet. Not until she did. Ana looked at him, eyes wide, lips pressed tight. Then she leaned close so no one else could hear, and whispered, "I can't do this." Keanu turned his head slowly. His eyes were soft, filled with understanding, not judgment. He didn't rush to fix her. He didn't throw out cliches or empty encouragement. He simply looked at her as if what she just said was the most honest, human thing in the world. After a moment, he nodded gently and whispered back, "Then, let's just breathe, together." Those words, so simple, so steady, cut through the chaos. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation. Ana closed her eyes, and Keanu did too. He took a deep, quiet breath in, and she followed. Then another, and another. And with each breath, the spinning in her chest slowed down. The trembling began to fade. For the first time that day, she didn't feel like she had to be anyone else. She could just be. And that was enough. Behind the curtain, the host was calling her name. The crowd began to cheer. The moment had arrived. Ana opened her eyes. They were still glossy with fear, but they were also filled with something else, something stronger. She looked at Keanu, and this time, she didn't whisper. She said, "Walk out with me?" Keanu smiled. "Always." They stepped onto the stage together. The crowd rose to their feet. Not because of a performance, not because of fame, but because they could feel it. The truth. The raw, open courage it took for Ana to show up, not as a perfect icon, but as a real person struggling and still standing. She stood behind the microphone, silent for a beat too long. The pressure of the silence pressed against her chest again. Then, she turned slightly, just enough to see Keanu standing behind her. Not in the spotlight, just in her line of sight. He gave a small nod. Not a push, just a reminder. He was there. She leaned into the microphone, voice soft but steady. "I didn't think I could do this tonight," she said. "I told Keanu I couldn't." The crowd went quiet. Every ear tuned in. No one expected that. Not from her. But he didn't try to fix me. He didn't tell me to pretend. He just said, "Then let's just breathe." And that reminded me that sometimes you don't have to have all the answers. You just need someone beside you who understands. Someone who stays. A murmur of emotion rippled through the audience. People clutched their hearts. Some wiped their eyes. Ana took another breath and continued. "We talk about mental health like it's a weakness, but the truth is, it's one of the strongest things we deal with. It's not always visible. It doesn't always make sense, but it's real. And tonight, I want to say to anyone who's struggling, anyone who whispered to themselves, 'I can't do this,' you're not alone." A deep silence followed. It wasn't awkward. It was respectful. Every soul in that room held her words gently, like something sacred. When she finished, she didn't wait for applause. She stepped back and turned to Keanu. Without a word, he hugged her. Not the kind of hug for cameras, not for show. It was quiet, still, human. And then the room erupted. The applause wasn't just loud, it was alive. It shook the walls. Not because she gave a speech, but because she gave something more. Truth. Connection. and it came through pain. After the event, social media exploded, not with gossip or glamour, but with people sharing their own whispers, their own "I can't do this" moments. The hashtag #JustBreatheWithMe trended in over 40 countries. People from all walks of life, nurses, students, fathers, even soldiers, posted photos of themselves with that simple phrase, "Then let's just breathe." The video of Keanu and Anna backstage, caught by a quiet, respectful cameraman, went viral. It showed them breathing together, no drama, no filter, just presence. It became one of the most viewed mental health clips in history. The next morning, Anna woke up to messages from strangers. Some said they canceled suicide plans because of her words. Others said they hadn't cried in years until last night. But one message stood out. It simply said, "You gave me permission to be scared and still try. Thank you." Anna wept, not from fear this time, from release, from knowing that what she thought was weakness had become strength for others. Later that day, Keanu sent her a text. "You were more than brave. You were real. That's what the world needs." Anna smiled and replied, "Thank you for breathing with me." And in that moment, she realized something. The stage may have been big, the lights may have been bright, but what truly mattered was that someone had stayed with her when she felt small, and that gave her the courage to speak for millions who didn't know how. Echoes of courage. The days after Anna's speech felt like a dream, but not the kind you forget when you wake up. This one stayed. It lingered in the air, in conversations, in the silence between two people who didn't know how to begin talking about their pain. What happened that night was more than just a charity event. It had cracked something open. Keanu Reeves returned to his quiet life. But even in quiet, the world found ways to speak. A young boy in a coffee shop in Berlin slipped him a note that said, "I breathe better now. My mom says thank you, but I say thank you to you." In a bookstore in Brazil, a woman in her 70s walked up to him, touched his sleeve gently, and said, "My son told me he cried after your moment with Anna." He had never cried before. Keanu didn't respond with grand words. He just listened. He always listened. Meanwhile, Anna was invited to dozens of new shows, interviews, and panels. Everyone wanted her to talk about the moment, but most didn't understand that the power of what happened was that it hadn't been planned. It wasn't a performance. It was a pause in a world that kept demanding movement. She agreed to appear on a late-night show with a host known for light humor. As soon as the cameras started rolling, the host joked, "So you nearly bailed on a charity stage. Good thing you had Keanu Reeves there to hold your hand." The crowd laughed. Anna didn't. She leaned forward, looked at the host, and calmly said, "I didn't nearly bail. I nearly broke. There's a difference." The laughter stopped. The silence was heavy, and instead of filling it with another joke, the host nodded, almost ashamed. Anna smiled gently to ease the tension and added, "Sometimes, someone holding your hand saves your life." Keanu, watching from home, felt a quiet pride. Not because she was bold, but because she was still honest. Later that week, Anna invited Keanu to lunch at a quiet vegan cafe in Los Angeles. He arrived in his usual way, low-key, on a motorcycle, wearing the same old boots he had worn for years. When she saw him, she stood and hugged him before he even sat down. "I owe you," she said softly. "No, you don't," he replied. "You owe yourself kindness, and you gave that to others." They sat outside, under a tree, away from cameras. Anna asked him, "How do you do it? How do you stay calm when the world wants something from you all the time?" Keanu sipped his tea and thought for a long moment. Then he said, "I don't try to be calm. I try to be present. When I'm not here, when I'm lost in what might happen, I panic too." Anna was surprised. "You panic?" "Of course," he said, almost amused. "Everyone does. Learn to make friends with the panic, not fight it. Anna stared at him. How do you make friends with something that makes you feel like drowning? Keanu smiled gently. You stop asking it to leave, and start asking it why it came. Those words sank into her like warm water on cold skin. She didn't respond. She just nodded, and that was enough. As they ate, a mother walked by with her daughter, no more than 6 years old. The little girl stared at Anna and whispered, "Mommy, that's the lady who told the truth." The mother looked embarrassed, but Anna knelt down and smiled at the child. Do you know what the truth does? Anna asked softly. The little girl shook her head. It helps others tell theirs. The girl didn't understand fully, but she smiled, because Anna smiled. And sometimes, that's all it takes. After the lunch, Anna and Keanu walked through a nearby park. No one bothered them. Maybe it was the quiet aura they carried, or maybe the world just knew to let them be. Anna stopped at a small bench, sat down and looked at the sky. You know, she said slowly, I was going to cancel that night. I had my driver waiting to turn around. I only went backstage because my manager begged me to. Keanu didn't say anything. He just sat beside her. And when I got there, I saw you standing so still, like the chaos couldn't touch you. It made me feel safer. He looked at her gently. It touched me too. I just didn't let it push me over. They sat in silence for a while. Then Keanu said, You ever think maybe that night was never about us? Anna turned to him. Maybe it was about them. About all the people who needed to hear someone say, I can't do this, out loud. Without shame, she exhaled. Maybe that's what real strength is, not pretending we're okay, but showing up anyway. Keanu nodded. That's what I believe. The next day, Anna received an email. It was from a school counselor in a small town in India. The subject line read, Thank you. The message was simple. The counselor had shown Anna's speech to a group of teenage girls who had been struggling with anxiety and depression. One girl who hadn't spoken in 3 weeks stood up after the video ended and said, I feel like she understands me. The counselor ended the email by saying, I think you saved a life today. Anna read that line again and again. Then, she forwarded it to Keanu with only 3 words. You helped me. He replied with 2. We helped. From that moment on, they knew something had changed. Their story, one night, one whisper, was growing into a movement. Not of celebrities or speeches, but of moments, shared, respected, understood. Anna started writing a book, not a guide, not a memoir, just pages of truths, little pieces of pain, healing, and breath. And she asked Keanu to write the first page. He sent it to her the next day. It simply read, If you ever feel like you can't do this, find someone who will breathe with you. Not fix you, not judge you. Just stay. Sometimes, staying is everything. Anna cried when she read it. And she knew, without any doubt, that this journey had only just begun. The breath between battle squeaks passed, but the echo of Anna's speech and Keanu's quiet support didn't fade. Instead, it spread. Across cities, across countries. Therapists began quoting her words. High schools held assemblies using clips from the event. People who had never spoken about their mental health were now opening up because someone had whispered what they were afraid to say. Anna began receiving letters, handwritten, shaky, often tear-stained. One came from a teenage boy in Scotland. It read, I told my dad I couldn't keep pretending to be okay. I used your words. He didn't understand right away, but he didn't walk away. And that was enough. Anna kept every letter. Each one a reminder that even fear, when spoken gently, had the power to heal. Keanu, on the other hand, kept his life as quiet as ever. He still rode his motorcycle through the city like a shadow. still visited the same bookstore, still helped carry groceries for elderly neighbors without anyone asking. But there was one thing he started doing differently. He began visiting hospitals, not as a celebrity, not for cameras. He wore a mask, a cap, and simply asked for permission to sit with those who felt alone. He didn't talk much. He didn't need to. Sometimes he read. Sometimes he just held someone's hand. But his presence, the stillness he carried, spoke louder than any headline. One day, Anna called him. Her voice sounded tight. "Keanu, I said yes to something, and now I think I made a mistake." "What is it?" he asked, voice calm as always. "They want me to speak at the Global Youth Summit in London. It's massive. More than 10,000 students. I thought I was ready. But now, I don't know. I'm afraid I'll freeze. Or worse, say the wrong thing and let everyone down." Keanu was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Can I tell you a secret?" "Sure. I once forgot my own line on stage, in front of over 1,000 people. I stood there like a statue. My heart was pounding so loud I thought it would crack my chest. But then someone from backstage whispered it to me, and I kept going." Anna was surprised. "I never heard that story, because no one filmed it," he said with a chuckle. "But I learned something that day. People don't remember perfection. They remember real moments." Anna sighed. "So you think I should do it?" "I think," he said gently, "you're not going to that summit to be perfect. You're going to be real, and that's already enough." Anna paused. "Will you come with me? You already know the answer." 3 weeks later, they stood backstage at a giant stadium in London. The energy of thousands of young hearts filled the air like thunder. Bright lights flashed. Camera crews moved like ants. Every step echoed with importance. Anna stood still, her palms slightly sweaty, her breathing shallow. Keanu placed a small folded note into her hand. "What is this?" she asked. "Don't open it unless you need to." She held it tightly. When the announcer called her name, the crowd roared. But all Anna could hear was the thud of her heart. Still, she walked onto the stage. She stood in front of the podium. The lights hit her eyes. She squinted. For a moment, she felt that same fear from weeks ago, the urge to flee. But then she saw something. In the front row sat a girl, maybe 16, with trembling hands and red eyes. She wasn't clapping. She wasn't smiling. She looked like someone holding on by a thread. Anna locked eyes with her, and she remembered. This wasn't about perfection. It was about connection. She took a deep breath, smiled softly, and spoke. "Hi, my name is Anna, and I was supposed to come here today and give you an inspiring speech. But the truth is, I don't feel very inspiring. I feel nervous, small, scared, and that's exactly why I'm here." The crowd went silent, because I think we've all been told to hide those feelings, to be brave, strong, confident. But what if real strength is saying, "I'm scared, but I'll speak anyway"? There was a murmur of agreement. Heads nodding. Anna continued. "Not long ago I told someone I trusted, I can't do this. And instead of pushing me, he said, then let's just breathe. That moment saved me. And I want to pass it on to you." The girl in the front row wiped her eyes. Anna stepped away from the podium. "So let's do it. All of us. Just one breath. Together." She closed her eyes. So did hundreds. Then thousands. The stadium fell into stillness. In and out. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't flashy. But it was powerful. When she opened her eyes, the silence held for a moment longer before applause rose. Not loud and chaotic, but warm and rising, like the sun. Anna reached into her hand and unfolded the note Keanu gave her. It said, "You're not speaking to 10,000. You're speaking to one person who needs you. That's who matters. Love, K." After the speech, students lined up to hug her. Not for selfies, not for fame, for something deeper. Connection. Anna and Keanu sat backstage, later sipping water. She looked tired but peaceful. "I'm starting to understand," she said. "Understand what?" he asked. "That maybe this whole path isn't about fixing people. It's about reminding them they aren't broken." Keanu smiled. "Exactly," Anna looked at him, her voice soft. "Thank you for not walking away when I whispered that night." He looked at her, eyes kind. "Thank you for turning a whisper into a message the world needed to hear." They didn't say more. They didn't need. To the breath they shared that night had turned into a wind carrying hope across the world. Behind every strong voice, the flight back from London was long, but quiet. Anna sat by the window, staring at the sky turning orange over the clouds. Her phone buzzed non-stop, articles being written, praise pouring in, messages from strangers, saying thank you in every language imaginable. And yet, she didn't feel like a hero. She felt human. Keanu sat beside her, a paperback book in his hands. He wasn't reading, just holding it, eyes closed, head tilted slightly back. Anna looked at him and thought about how different he was from everyone she'd ever worked with. There was no ego, no spotlight chasing. He didn't speak unless it mattered. And that in itself made everything he said feel real. "Can I ask you something personal?" Anna whispered. Keanu opened his eyes. "You can always ask. Have you ever had a moment when you didn't think you could go on?" Keanu looked out the window for a long time before answering. "Yes," he said, "many times." Anna waited. He continued, voice low. "After my sister got sick. After the accident that took someone I loved. And even after success, when the lights went out and the house felt too quiet. I've had days when I stared at the ceiling and wondered why I should get up." Anna's breath caught. "But you did." He nodded. "Yes. Not because I had the strength, but because someone called, or smiled, or just showed up. Sometimes, we don't save ourselves. Sometimes, someone else stands close enough that we find a reason to move." Anna didn't respond. She just reached out and gently held his hand. Not to comfort him, but to thank him for sharing, for being real, for reminding her that even strong voices carry pain. When they landed, Anna didn't go straight home. Instead, she asked Keanu to come with her to a small mental health center in the heart of the city. It wasn't famous, it wasn't funded well, but it was where she had once gone, quietly, when no one knew she was struggling. They walked in together. The director was surprised, even a little shaken to see two stars walk through the doors. But Anna explained, "We're not here for cameras, we're here to listen." They sat in a circle with 7 young people, teens and early 20s. Some had scars on their arms, some had tired eyes. All of them were brave enough to show up. Anna didn't speak first, neither did Keanu. They waited. A boy with shaky hands finally said, "I saw your speech. I don't trust actors, but I believed you." Anna smiled gently. "Thank you for saying that." Another girl added, "I've had panic attacks since I was 12. I always thought something was wrong with me. But hearing you say you were scared too, it made me feel okay for the first time in years." Keanu nodded. "Fear doesn't mean weakness. It means we care deeply about what's ahead." One of the quietest in the room, a young woman with purple hair and eyes that looked far older than her age, finally said, "I don't want to die. I just don't know how to keep living sometimes." Keanu leaned forward. His voice was calm, almost a whisper. "I know that feeling. I once thought the world would be better off without me. But someone reminded me that even the quietest presence can change someone else's life." She looked at him, unsure whether to believe it. He added, You being here today might be saving someone else already. The girl blinked, then looked at the person sitting beside her. And that person reached out and gently touched her hand. And just like that, a moment passed between them that no therapy could force. After the group ended, Anna walked with Keanu through the parking lot. That girl, she reminds me of me, Anna whispered. She reminds me of everyone, Keanu said. We all carry something. Anna nodded. I used to hide everything, smile in front of cameras, cry alone. I thought that's what being strong meant. We've been told a lot of wrong things about strength, Keanu said. Anna looked at him. You ever feel like we're walking into places we're not ready for? Keanu smiled. Every day. But then I remind myself, we're not walking in alone. That night, Anna couldn't sleep. Not because she was anxious, but because something inside her was shifting. She picked up her phone and posted a message. To anyone who feels like they're pretending to be okay just to get through the day, I see you, and I want you to know it's okay to not be okay. Please don't carry it alone. Within hours, the I post went viral. A mother in South Africa commented, I read this at 3 a.m. while sitting next to my daughter in a clinic. Thank you for seeing us. A man in Japan replied, I haven't spoken about my depression in 10 years. Today, I showed your post to my brother. Anna didn't sleep at all, but she felt more rested than she had in years. In the morning, Keanu sent her one line. The world is healing through your honesty, she replied. Ours too. And then the invitation came. The World Health Organization sent a private letter. They wanted Anna and Keanu to attend a global roundtable on mental health awareness. Something new, something that had never been done before. Not just celebrities, not just experts, but survivors, listeners, real people. Anna stared at the letter in disbelief. Keanu simply said, it's time. She nodded. Let's do it. They didn't know what would come next. They didn't know their message would reach world leaders. They didn't know their presence would spark a policy change that would help millions. But in that moment, they knew one thing. This story wasn't just theirs anymore. It belonged to everyone who ever whispered, I can't do this. And everyone who replied, then let's just breathe. Voices at the table. When Ana de Armas and Keanu Reeves walked into the United Nations building in Geneva, the guards barely looked up. They didn't come in with a crowd of assistants or flashy outfits. They didn't bring cameras or publicity. Teams. They came alone. Quiet, respectful, grounded. Yet by the time they reached the conference room, whispers had already begun. Is that really them? Why are they here? Aren't they actors? But the organizers knew. They had watched the world change quietly since that single night on stage, since a whisper turned into a message that traveled farther than any ad or campaign. Now, global health leaders, mental wellness researchers, school board presidents and human rights activists all sat at the same table, and 2 seats had been saved for Anna and Keanu. The room wasn't large. No flashing lights. Just a round table, wooden and worn. But what happened around it would soon reach the ears of presidents and prime ministers. Anna sat with her hands folded, Keanu beside her, calm as always. The first speaker, a man from Norway, shared statistics on rising suicide rates among teens. Another woman from India talked about the pressure on rural students and how no infrastructure existed for help. A representative from Peru spoke about young boys being told to toughen up and never cry until they broke in silence. Everyone nodded. They shared studies, graphs, data, but something was missing, until one delegate, a therapist from New Zealand, said softly, "We keep talking about the problem. But what about the people? What about the moments when someone just needs to hear, 'You're not alone'?" The room shifted. Then the head of the mental health task force turned to Anna. "Miss de Armas, would you like to share something?" Anna nodded slowly. Her voice was quiet at first. "I don't have data or research, I only have a moment. One where I said, I can't do this. And someone didn't try to fix me. He just said, then let's just breathe. She looked at Keanu, then back at the others. That sentence saved me. And when I repeated it in front of an audience, it saved others too. Keanu added, what we've learned is simple. People don't always need answers. They need presence. They need someone to say, I see you, I hear you, and I'll stay with you. Someone from the back asked, but how do we bring that into a system? Into schools? Into governments? Anna responded, start by training teachers to listen before they respond. Start by giving space for silence, not just speeches. Not every child wants to be fixed. Some just want to be understood. The discussion turned deeper. No longer about policies alone, but about humanity. The kind that can't be measured on paper. Empathy, patience, compassion. By the end of the day, one of the senior advisors to a European education minister stood and said, we want to launch something new, quiet rooms in schools, spaces where no one is forced to talk, but anyone can be heard if they choose. Another leader from Japan offered to fund anonymous message walls in high schools where students could post how they felt without names, safe spaces for emotions. Then, the woman from India said, we'll pilot a Just Breathe club in rural schools. No cost, just one adult who agrees to be there and listen. No judgment. Anna felt tears sting her eyes. Keanu squeezed her hand beneath the table. They were no longer just actors, no longer just voices. They were bridges. That night, as they walked through the cold streets of Geneva, snow beginning to fall around them, Anna looked up at the sky and whispered, how did we get here? Keanu smiled. By being honest and showing up. Anna nodded slowly. Do you think it'll last? Yes, Keanu said, because it's not about us. It's about the ones who will carry it next. Just then, a woman stopped them on the sidewalk. She looked nervous, holding a paper in her hands. Sorry, she said softly. I saw you at the summit last month. I've been too afraid to speak to anyone about my postpartum depression. But after hearing you both, I found the courage to tell my husband. Anna's hand flew to her chest. The woman handed her the paper. It was a letter. It read, your words helped me speak the truth. And now my husband holds our baby at night so I can rest. We are healing. Thank you, Keanu whispered. This is what matters. Anna hugged the woman tightly. The next morning, the hashtag, #JustBreathe, with me, became the name of a new foundation. Launched not by a corporation but by volunteers, people who had watched the journey, felt it, and now wanted to pass it on. In 6 weeks, there were breathing circles in 32 countries. In 3 months, over 1.2 million students had participated in the first ever Emotional Safety Day, where no student was graded, no one had to speak, but everyone was given a safe space. News outlets finally caught on. Headlines read, actors become mental health trailblazers with just one sentence. A whisper turned into a worldwide moment of healing. Keanu and Anna lead a quiet revolution. But Anna and Keanu didn't care for the headlines. They cared about the girl who no longer cut herself. They cared about the boy who sat at lunch with someone for the first time. They cared about the grandmother who finally said, I miss my daughter, and cried for the first time in 20 years. Back in Los Angeles, Anna sat on her balcony with a candle burning beside her. She opened her notebook and wrote a message for the last page of her upcoming book to the person reading this. If today feels too heavy, find someone who will sit with you. Not speak, not judge, just stay and breathe. One moment at a time, she looked at the night sky, and in the distance, a text from Keanu arrived. Are you okay? She smiled and replied, yes, just breathing. The quiet that changed the world 6 months had passed since that first whisper backstage. It began with fear. Now it lived in movements, in classrooms, in homes, in places where no one thought healing could happen. All from a moment when Armas said, "I can't do this," and Keanu Reeves simply replied, "Then let's just breathe." What they had created wasn't just global, it was personal. Anna now spent most of her time away from movie sets. She visited schools, sat in therapy rooms, and helped build something real, spaces where silence was allowed, where tears were welcomed, where no one had to pretend they were fine. Keanu, as always, remained quiet about his role. He continued his visits to hospitals, shelters, and recovery centers. No one took pictures, and if they did, he gently asked them not to share. Not because he was ashamed, but because some moments were meant to be kept safe. One day, Anna received an invitation, not from a show, not from a gala. It was from a 10-year-old girl named Leela. "Dear Anna, I go to a small school in the mountains. We don't have computers or fancy books, but we watched your video on an old TV. I was the quiet one in class, but now, because of you, I told my teacher that sometimes my chest hurts when I get scared." She hugged me. She said I was brave. "We have a small tree outside where we sit and breathe together now. We call it the Whisper Tree. Will you come see it?" Anna read the letter 3 times. Then she called Keanu. "We're going to the mountains," she said. "When do we leave?" he asked, already smiling. The journey was long, dirt roads, bumpy rides, cold air that made their cheeks pink. But when they arrived, they saw it. A tiny school, no bigger than a house. Laughter echoed from inside. And under the tree, tied with colorful ribbons, sat 12 children in a circle. They were breathing together. No teacher, no instructions, just presence. Lila stood when she saw them, her eyes wide, her smile nervous. Anna knelt beside her. "Thank you for inviting me." Lila hugged her tightly. "You helped me feel like my feelings matter." Keanu sat with the boys who usually stayed out of such things. He asked no questions, just listened. They talked about dreams, fears. One said, "I didn't cry when my grandpa died. I thought it made me strong. But I miss him every day." Keanu didn't speak. He just nodded, placed a hand on the boy's shoulder and said, "That's love, and love stays." Later, Anna and Keanu sat under the whisper tree with the teacher, who said something that stayed with them forever. "We always taught our students how to read and write. Now, we also teach them how to sit and breathe, how to feel and not be ashamed." That night, Anna looked at the sky again, just like she did on the flight back from London, and said, "I think this is the most important role I've ever played." Keanu smiled. "And you didn't even need a script." They returned to the city with full hearts, but the story didn't end there. 1 month later, Anna's book, The Breath Between Us, was released. It didn't launch with fanfare. No big red carpet. Just quiet readings at community centers and healing groups. It became a worldwide bestseller, not because of celebrity, but because people saw themselves in the pages. They saw their pain, their silence, their strength. Schools adopted passages into their emotional wellness programs. Prison inmates passed the book from cell to cell, writing notes in the margins. Therapists read it aloud to patients who couldn't speak yet. And one day, the book landed in the hands of a woman sitting on the edge of a hospital bed. Her hands shook. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She had come to say goodbye to the world. Then, she opened the book to a line that read, "You are not too broken to be loved. You are just waiting for someone to sit beside you until the pieces feel safe to return." She stayed, and wrote a letter to Anna months later, thanking her for saving a life she didn't know she had touched. Anna shared the letter with Keanu. They didn't cry. They sat in silence for a while, then they smiled. And later that night, Keanu stood on a small stage for a rare event, a private, unannounced gathering about mental health for youth. He didn't prepare a speech. He simply walked to the microphone and said, "Years ago, someone whispered to me that they couldn't do this. And instead of speaking like an actor, I listened like a friend." He looked around the room. Sometimes, what saves us isn't a rescue. It's a hand that doesn't let go, a breath that reminds us we're still here, and someone who says, "Me too." He stepped back. The room stood in silence, not frozen, but feeling deeply. A few months later, world leaders began reshaping school curriculums to include emotional safety. A new global day was announced, World Breath Day, a day where silence, empathy, and presence are celebrated across the world, and each year people remember where it started, not with a movement, not with a foundation, but with a whisper behind a curtain. "I can't do this," and a quiet, steady reply. "Then let's just breathe."